Is anyone seeing this? Look how much is coming off! Nuke exclaimed. Bits of tin shrapnel were scattering from the rock face every time his pick rammed its way in there. You probably think you're pretty strong, huh? But come on, you seeing this? You have to be seeing this. Nuke was trying to impress some of the 1,000 Guardians, who had come over to investigate the racket at the end of the base. The southwest corner of the Manx Sand compound had a tin vein exposed on the surface, which was of approximately zero use to anyone, and hence it is no surprise Nuke had started mining it out. I said approximately zero use, for if you really zoom in on the use graph, you'll see one possible application of the flimsy, valueless metal. It was put in the hands of one strong, infinitely valuable skeleton with a red faceplate. Red Rick had been in a bad mood ever since his recent encounter with Stobe, whose role in Rick's life was of both the utmost significance and secrecy. It was to be a secret even from himself, and so to that end, Rick had discovered a nice way to divert his processing power elsewhere. He was polishing up the tin ore, then hammering it into little shapes. These shapes, when assembled, created little model humans, faceless and dull. Perhaps that was how Rick saw his fleshy muse. Nuke was therefore trying to help his supposedly suffering Star Warrior, and embarrassing himself in front of the Shek was just a fringe benefit. It wasn't the only genius idea he'd had recently. Unhappy with how the whole Bugmaster campaign had exposed many people's mortal weaknesses, he devised a genius way to make his crew a little more thick-skinned, or at least more crispy-skinned. It was as simple as it was effective. He had people taking turns sitting on top of a fire, because what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, the ancient literature claimed. Nuke pointed to Ignacio as a case study of this effect. He had lost an arm and a leg in service to the guild, but he survived, and now he had a robot arm and a robot leg to play with. Stronger. And more lopsided, but you can't expect these legs to be one size fits all, can you? Later that day, Nuke called Izumi over to watch the fine mining. It's all in the swing, you see, Nuke explained knowingly, doing the swing with well-practiced incompetence. Great, at least you're helping Rick. I think that's good of you. Maybe he'll calm down and explain something. That bot's everything I could ever want.
I told you to stay away from me, alright? Still ain't got the shit out of there from last time,
Rick called from the shed. All I could want for my research? Tell me your secrets and I'll leave you alone.
You leave me alone and I won't go telling anyone your secrets, you pervert,
Rick concluded, disappearing again. Sounds like he had secrets that both Izumi and Nuke would be highly interested in, but he would say nothing of either. Hence, Nuke and Izumi clanked away at the tin seam all afternoon, ironically slaving away on behalf of a skeleton that wanted nothing more than to erase his memories of the time when such a relationship between man and machine was mandatory. This homely bout of conspiracy, perversion and manual labour was interrupted by a lone Shek arriving at the base. He was one of Istata's troops with bad news from Admag.
I knew this would happen,
Isaiah nodded. He pointed at a spot on the map hanging on the barrack wall.
Those old fools couldn't let go. They'll be moving light and swift. Should be about here. By tomorrow, perhaps here. And then we shall have berserkers at our gates.
And these Shek can't be reasoned with? Wadston asked.
I seriously doubt it,
Isaiah said, shaking his head.
I believe these will be the Shek who were slated to battle the Bugmaster, but have had their valor and such stolen away. Stolen by the Prince and I suppose, so our heads are the new target for the last stand.
We ended that though, right? Nuke said. Stone Zone said she was going to sort the whole death cult thing out.
I know, but not everyone will listen, will they? You know how people can be. And we Shek, we're like how people can be all the time.
How many berserkers are coming, you reckon? Izumi asked.
There's no way to say. All we have is this rumor that they'd set off. Could be 1,000, perhaps only 100. Either way, we need a plan.
A plan? Nuke scoffed. Wait, man, we've got the 1,000 Guardians here, so 1,000 crazies ain't nothing. And we're sitting on like a stack of choco bread. Brown pound, straight from the brown mound, day in, day out. What are they gonna do?
But the canyon will trap us,
Sandor warned. "If things go wrong, we'll be out of luck. They could even blockade us in here and wait for the bread to run out." "A siege? That would be terrible," Wadston said, remembering the siege of Heft 2 decades prior in the war that brought a certain Tashino clan to power. "Man, sounds like the battle to save the kingdom isn't over yet," Yuke said. "We'll deal with the last of the old guard the hard way. They might attack us over the walls or trap us here, and we've got to be ready. Let's get down to business to defeat the Shek."
Did they send me fleshies when I asked for mechs?
Rick hummed to himself outside. His eavesdropping complete, he went back to his shed, confident that the battle to come was his to win. Out there, rushing towards them with unheard-of speed, was a horde of angry, belligerent Shek berserkers, lifelong warriors, eager to die in battle or die trying. Nuke's army braced themselves for the onslaught, preparing medical supplies and fresh beds, and of course sitting on burning campfires, after which the thought of getting a sword wedged into you didn't seem that bad. The morning of the battle came. "I want to see 10 and 20, Gustafsson shouted to Nuke from the wall. 10 and 20 what?
Units!
Units of...
Units of walking!
I think he means to say, Jazz interjected, that he wants the 10 and 20 pace lines marked out in the approach. We've got a load of firewood left over from the squat and singe program, so let's light it up. The gate was opened up and Nuke started marking out the range lines while the archery experts calibrated their weapons up on the walls. But there was a loud jangling sound, then a load of scraping.
"Come on, you sons of guns,"
Rick said to the sack he was dragging across the gate threshold. "Whoa, are you running away from home? Is this about Future Girl? We could share. I'm not that fussy, man."
"What in the name of hell's old and new are you talking about? You can keep your slime ball girlfriend, thank you very much. Good luck with the... Well, you'll find out. Nothing much to worry about, all that. Anyway, I ain't going anywhere. In fact, I'm gonna sort your shit out. Check it."
Rick opened his clanking sack to reveal a legion of tin figurines. "Wait, they can fight?" Nuke asked.
Kinda. Ask yourself this, my biological friend. If you rolled up on some outpost and saw it was guarded by a horde of strange little metal men, wouldn't you be a little worried they were up to something?
But to clarify, they aren't actually up to anything.
No! Well, haven't kept that close an eye on them, but even then, the only thing they've been up... Damn it, I said I'd let you find out the hard way. Just move it, will ya?
Rick laid out his army of tin men across the gates to the base. Each was about a foot tall, a featureless humanoid shape on a square stone base, with no moving parts and not even any sharp edges. Would this be enough to stop the horde? Rick, believing so, returned to his shed. Meanwhile, Nuke got the rest of the crew organized. Splitting the army into human, Hiver, Shek and Crab companies, he positioned his forces ready to defend the sweet sands of Mank against whatever might come through that gate. The sun passed overhead. Midday. The canyon was silent, but for the steady clanging coming from Rick's shed. Then there was a raspy tone that echoed from the west.
"A war horn,"
Isaiah said.
"1,000 Guardians, by the left! Start pounding that mound!"
This strange order caused the Shek to inject their performance-enhancing starch. The ground began to shake as the berserker horde approached. It came down into the valley, and at last the guild saw them. They wore little, but carried huge two-handed greatswords. They cawed and whooped as they suddenly rushed for the walls, but then they fell silent and stumbled to a halt. The front ranks were staring at the Tin Man army. The Tin Man army, in its own way, stared back. Harpoons were slid into turrets, bowstrings drawn, crab claws flexed, yet all was still.
It's a little man,
a berserker shouted, pointing at a model.
"There are loads of them,"
another stuttered, looking around wide-eyed at the stalwart formation, 4 ranks deep and 12 inches high.
"They're small, and they can see us!"
A Shek panicked, dropping his blade and scrambling back through his comrades to escape.
"They can see us!"
Cries came from throughout the horde, and off they all went. desperately fleeing before the cold, fearless stares of their foes. Yep, that's really what happened. Maybe the berserkers got their way and managed to die elsewhere, but it was not this day. "Coin slot, you mad machine, get out here," Nuke called. Rick was pretty much dragged from his shed and hoisted up by the crowd of victorious biologicals.
Just doing my part, letting you live, you know. Gotta make up for that old shit. I mean, whatever,
Rick said. So there we have it. The guild was saved from the aftershocks of what they did in the Shek Kingdom by the very distant aftershocks of what skeletons did in the transition from the First Empire to the Second, or whatever Rick did specifically. Perhaps learning to sculpt was part of it. As for rewarding Rick, he only wanted one thing. Thus, Nuke and Izumi went out for another afternoon on the tin mine. Strategically, Nuke led Izumi behind the main outcropping so that they could work out a view of the rest of the base. He had something very special he wanted to talk to her about. "So I've been thinking," he started. Izumi didn't dare prompt him further, just in case. "I was thinking about me and you, and our relationship." Now Izumi was quite on edge. Was this it? The thing she'd dreamed of and dreaded in equal measure? Was Nuke going to reveal that inner romantic that she was sure he had hidden away? "I was thinking," he went on, "that I should stop paying you." Ah. Izumi gave the tin vein a sudden, very powerful thwack with her pick, then let out a long breath. "Oh, I had no idea, Nuke. I thought we were working. I really did. It's okay, I can go back to back scratch, I guess. But Nuke, you..." Unable to say more, she moved to leave, but Nuke's arms held her back. "Wait, I want to stop paying you, so that it's not like I'm paying you to hang out with me," he explained. This wasn't a massive amount better, but surprisingly, he'd said something that didn't make it worse, so we can all appreciate that. "What do you mean? I'm not here for my fucking guild salary." "I know, that's good. So I was thinking that you shouldn't just be my employee, Like, I don't want to have you and Wadston in the same category." "Cool. That sounds... so what category am I in, precisely?" "I dunno. It's like its own category, with only you in it. Or that's what I want. You have to volunteer to be in this category, so it's different to the other ones." "Right. So this category, is that like a friend?" "A friend, but a friend of a certain category." "You mean like a friend who is a boy?" "Kinda, close. That's pretty much... I don't want to say it's a contractually defined thing with names and terms, blah blah blah, because it's more like something that is happening just because you want it to happen." "And you want it to happen?" "Yeah, that's why I asked you to mine tin with me." "What a great reason to ask that." "I know, right? So, what should we do now?" "I guess we just keep going." "Keep mining tin?" Yeah?" "Oh, right. Yeah, better keep going." On the other side of the tin vein, Foreign and Shamika were getting rather embarrassed eavesdropping on all this. "This is weird. Should we get her out of there?" Shamika asked.
Don't you worry about that,
Rick said from nearby. He stepped out from behind the finishing machine with an armful of freshly polished tin ingots.
They've been like that since I knew 'em. Makes me sick, but that's biologicals for you. It'll happen to you one day, too. Reminds me, you girls want to help me take my mind off something?
The girls looked at each other, shrugged, and disappeared into Rick's shed. Nuke and Izumi eventually reappeared with barrows filled with extremely well-mined tin ore. They looked at each other and smiled just a little too long, then ran off to attend to all kinds of invented business. And hence, the cliffs of Manksand Canyon were witness to another anticlimax. None of the residents had any complaints, as in truth the matters of love and war had been settled, in one way or another.